All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a weekend edition of Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. All right, big fails in Texas for the orange tub of goo. He even pulled out the heavy hitter Melania to try to fumble some English words through the good people of Texas. That didn't work out too well. Pam Bondi under fire by her own folks, MAGA, taking strays left and right, just taking aim at Pam Bondi and Donald Trump. Turning Point is not the friendly location it used to be. Laura Ingraham up in front of the crowd getting booed because the Epstein files have been deemed unimportant. And that's what Donald Trump says on his Truth Social. He's been truthing that all weekend. All right, let's get into it a little deeper now. Brock Ganeles joins us now for the Hudson River Valley in upstate New York, right outside the city. Brock, I didn't know MAGA cared so much about the sexual. I mean, Donald Trump has been credibly accused of sexually assaulting grown women. He's been found liable in a civil suit for what was it, $88 million that he hasn't paid a nickel of. And there was another lawsuit in which he was credibly accused of attacking a minor. So why all of a sudden is MAGA so hot and bothered about the Epstein files? They know it's full of Trump stuff.
Kind of stunned. I guess I just totally missed this one. I had just, I guess, assumed, not being like a close MAGA watcher, right? Like, well, I've been keeping my eye on Trump, right? Because he's doing shit that's like ruining, him. I wasn't watching what behind the scenes MAGA was so like up in arms and really expecting this Epstein file to come forward. I was under the assumption at this point that it already had been baked into the pie about Trump. They all knew he was in there. It's obvious. There's so many photos of Trump with Epstein that like just seeing the file almost didn't matter. We know that Trump was one of the people involved.
Sure.
So I didn't realize that that it would just cause this MAGA civil war when Pam Bondi said that, in essence, there is no file, right? I mean, the lies are really terrible because it went from Trump saying that he wanted the file to be released.
Right.
Then them saying that there is no file, and then going back to then saying, oh, well, if there is a file, it was just created by Hillary Clinton and Obama and Biden. Right. So the whole thing, has been a mess, but I didn't realize it was going to enrage MAGA so much, and that like Bogdano and Kash Patel, threatening to quit and because Bondi won't release the file. But of course, Bondi's not going to release it. She works for Trump and Trump doesn't want it out because now Trump's worried that it's going to make him look bad. I just thought it was all already baked into everybody's opinion of Donald Trump, an assumption that we all knew. Of course, Trump is involved with underage women like Epstein.
Right.
I mean, it's so fucking obvious that I thought the story was dead 6-8 years ago.
Right. Well, remember, Mar-a-Lago was the place where Virginia Giuffre, who just died from suicide, was recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell, right? There were more than just Ms. Giuffre who was recruited from Mar-a-Lago. That was the spot. That was their go-to spot where Ghislaine would get the women, bring them back to Epstein, and they would get trafficked from there. So Mar-a-Lago was, the recruiting zone, if you will. And remember, they got that sweetheart deal for Epstein out of Palm Beach. Nobody has explained that yet to us. And so, again, like you said, you made a great point. We thought it was all baked in and it didn't matter. No one cared on the MAGA side of the ledger because they voted for the guy anyway. And we knew everything was credible, right? But there were too many court records for it not to be credible.
Yeah, he's on the plane logs. We've seen the depositions from some of the young women. It's hard to believe there's going to be something in the Epstein file that's going to be surprising about Trump. I mean, the other names in there, we know MAGA wants to see some of the other names, right? They probably think Bill Clinton's in there and some others, and they want, they may be convinced that there are a bunch of Democrats in there, but it just seems like it's almost like wishful thinking to believe that it's only going to be Democrats sitting in the Epstein files. Like
Right. It makes no sense.
No, it's going to be all kinds of people from all over and both sides, right? Yeah, it's just bizarre. The question is, how does Trump tamp it down? And my worry is, what outrageous shit does he have to do to get MAGA so much excited about him again so that they stop clamoring for these files, let this story fade because they're so riled up and enraged about what is going on. He needs another wag the dog for his own followers now.
Exactly. And the first wag the dog didn't work because there was no wag, right? When he bombed Iran, right? And then the bombs were ineffective. That became a scandal for him, for which he was lashing out at reporters in the media and the like. So we don't even know, how bad it was behind the scenes. But I don't think it's going to go away that quickly. You got Kash Patel and Bongino talking about we're going to resign if Pam Bondi stays and if these files are not released. So, I don't think this is going away very quickly because now they're calling Donald Trump part of the deep state. They're saying you are actually part of the deep state now. You lied to us. Well, surprise, surprise. Donald Trump lied to you, okay?
Yeah,
That's the lie you found out of the 35,000 plus lies he told in Trump 1.0. Now he's at it again. He's got, we don't even have a truth-o-meter on him, for the first 7 months of this year. Everything that comes out of this fucking guy's mouth is a lie. And it's sickening to me that this is now what they want to hang their hat on. You could have hung your hat on this prior to the election and said, hey, if you don't promise to, and he had promised to do this, right? Which is what they're pissed about, is that he's going back on his word. He promised to release the Epstein files, and now he won't do it.
Yeah, they're not pissed that he lied that he had a healthcare plan, right? That was coming in 2 weeks. So the first time he was around, the infrastructure week was coming a week away and that he literally did nothing. Like, it's just almost kind of, they didn't, 30 rape allegations of very credible women coming up, telling their stories. We heard them over and over and over. They just totally discounted all of that. And it's this topic, this file, it's Epstein, is where they're gonna draw the line on Trump's lies.
Right.
So I'm happy it's happening. I'm surprised this is the topic and the place where the buck stops here, so to speak, and where maybe some of the shine comes off of Trump in terms of his supporters. You don't think it's going to go away? I guess my assumption, maybe I'm still discounting it too much, is I feel like he's going to figure out a way to divert people's attention away from this. I think he's the master he's the maestro at this, of getting them. I don't know. I just worry there's going to be, there's going to be blood on the streets to get people focused on something else.
All he can do is really amp up his ICE, onslaught, because that's disgusting. And that will get things, moving in the wag the dog direction. But he needs something bigger and bolder. We've already been subjected to that, hyenas type of crime that is. He needs something bigger and bolder. He needs, something like a warmongering move. Maybe he goes back and invades Greenland. I don't know. But he needs something.
He needs some enemies. He went after Rosie O'Donnell, saying he's got to take her citizenship away. She's not a big enough fish that anyone cares about. He may need to find a really big, opponent and a really big cause for his MAGA folks. I worry it'll be a person of color, so I'd be concerned, if I was in the Black community camp, that he's going to look for something that he knows MAGA is going to be, in total lockstep on.
Yep. And it's interesting too because, this thing has just hovered, right? And also remember, let's not forget the altered videotape from the prison, from the jail, right? Did you see the report from Wired?
Yeah.
That is problematic, where this thing has been edited 4 times, saved 4 times, and independent video experts can identify the actual type of editing software that was used. This is damning stuff. Nobody thought Epstein killed himself. I didn't anyway. None of the black folks I knew thought he killed himself. Did your friends think he actually couldn't, take his own life? I just don't know anybody who thought he killed himself.
But it was another one of those things where 95% of people are like, no way this guy killed himself. He got killed to keep him quiet.
Right.
This is I mean, this is an amazing one. I underestimated the QAnon and how much MAGA loves their conspiracy theories. Maybe they love their conspiracy theories on par with their racism. We're gonna find out because it's cracking them apart over, like whether or not they're gonna get fed the raw meat of this file to satisfy their needs and what conspiracies they can play up and which people other people they can quote take down. Now remember, this is a group of people that thought there was a pedophile ring under a pizza shop in DC and had an armed guy going after, right? So they've been on this pedophile ring shit for a good decade.
The pedophile thing is a big issue for them, except when it's a Republican lawmaker that gets caught doing it. I mean, then they kind of
somehow they convince themselves it's Tom Hanks and Hillary Clinton, right? Like they pull names out of left field.
Yes.
Random folks that
yes. And the thing about it, Brock, is how does this move the needle to make life better for America? Right? For Americans and the American experience. Doesn't lengthen our lifespan, right? It tells you how off the focus is of this American government, right? This regime, right, is so focused on pedophilia, they can't focus on we got another outbreak of the bubonic plague, first death since 2007. The bubonic friggin' plague is back. The good thing is that we have capable people running HHS, so they'll know exactly how to respond. Not to mention that measles outbreak.
When you said 2007, I thought you were going to say the year 406 AD or something. I thought you were going to say 18 years ago. It was going to be 1800 years ago. I hadn't heard the bubonic plague in my lifetime. There's another one that's been unearthed out of the never to be seen again diseases that are now working their way back into the mainstream.
Right. But again, the focus is way off base. They're not serious. These people don't understand governance. The Texas thing, a nightmare. We're finding out about the positions that were eliminated by Doge that directly impacted what happened down there on the Guadalupe River. And it's one shit show after another, right? And these people have no idea how to respond, how to get out in front of anything with policy that matters to us as human beings. It's all performative. It's all trash, and none of it really matters in the big scheme of things. They're not doing anything to protect children. This is the pro-life party, right? I guess their pro-life movement is let's protect children from pedophiles. I mean, I guess that's their stance on the Epstein files, right? And if you read that rambling crock of shit that Trump put on his Truth Social, he was talking about how in fact Jeffrey Epstein doesn't matter to anyone. No one cares about Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, he's trying to convince them not to care.
Right.
He's literally trying to convince people not to care. I mean, look, it could be a story about accountability and law and order and that actually, okay. I mean, it should come out. The file should come out. Obviously, more than just what's that one woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, shouldn't be the only person of the entire scheme that's in jail. So that could be about law and order, but the Texas thing really hurts Trump because it looked like buffoonery and also saving money in the wrong places. And from the big picture, from the Project 2025 behind the scenes, it's really all about climate change denial because part of why they want to strip back these weather services and this science and the NOAA cuts is they really don't want to acknowledge that we're having more extreme weather and damaging weather incidents because of climate change. So it's really a big picture, the anti-science is because the science comes to an answer they don't want to hear.
Right.
Because they want the fossil fuels to be making the money to flow into all those conservative areas like Kerr County in Texas.
Sure.
So that the same people make the money and flow back to the politicians and it stays circular and the same people enrich themselves over the rest of America. But this one hurt them because it was their people and it looked like the cuts were saving a penny when they're giving away, a quarter to the 1%. And So, it was incompetence and, just greed caused a lot of deaths, and it caused the deaths of, quote, their own people.
Right.
Because let's face it, it was white Christian kids at camp that were,
That part.
most of the deaths. So
That.
yeah, Trump's had a terrible week. He's
Yeah.
having a terrible week. It's still going on. He also got booed at a soccer game he went to today. I don't know why he even went, but at MetLife Stadium, he went to like some World Soccer Championship game, got booed. They had to pull his face off the jumbotron. So like, he's in a bad space right now.
I love it for him.
Fortunately, he still has all the power, and he still passed the worst piece of legislation in American history.
Right.
And that is funding a massive increase in these ICE Gestapo agents that are still stomping around America,
With masks.
wreaking havoc.
Right. And they're incentivizing it. Did you see the bonus that they've added into the budget there? They're going to be heavily incentivizing this thing for people to sign up, and take these jobs. And, there's not going to be any training. Let's go out here and grab people that aren't white. That's basically the training, right? If you hear anybody speaking Spanish, snatch them off the street. That's what's going to be, their training manual, and
Wow.
because there is no due process. There's no recourse. There's no one you can turn to, and what's going to happen when mayors of so-called sanctuary cities, that have all been labeled, by the Trump regime,
Yeah.
start saying, hey, don't allow ICE agents in. What happens then?
I know. I'm waiting for the confrontation. It really
Yes.
hasn't happened yet.
Yes.
Right? In New York, they said ICE agents police could, arrest ICE agents who are, infringing on people's rights. So we just haven't seen that conflict yet, right? There's been a lot of talk of it, but we haven't seen it. Along with the lack of training, I was just thinking as you were saying it, obviously they're going to have to lower the standards to get people to take these ICE jobs.
Sure.
So it's like it's going to be the worst of the worst that are going to get these jobs, but they're also going to give them like extremely heavy weaponry,
Right.
right? Like, so what kind of training are they going to have in AK-47s and these guns that they're being given?
And here's the thing, Brock, we got January 6ers on the squad now. So, how much worse can we get? Oath keepers, 3%ers. What are we just going to do? Like, recruit the alt-right for these positions and pay them six figures out of our tax dollars? Right? That's what's happening here. Not to mention the fact that the debt, 30% of the debt is Trump's. 30%. Meanwhile, he's enriching himself. 40% of his acquired wealth has come over the last 6 months. Make it make sense, bro.
Yeah, it's going up. He buys crypto, and then he pushes all kinds of legislation that benefits it, right? Everything's always going to benefit his personal holdings. I don't know how he's going to help his perfume along. Something tells me that's kind of a bust, but the guy fucking tries everything. The question is, sort of like what are we going to do about it? Like, he's definitely weakened. But he has a bigger army, right? He's weakened in terms of his popularity, but his army is bigger. So it's really becoming more about brute force than it is about coercion and support. Yes, there's been some uprisings against ICE at the local level, but it just gets us back to that same thing. It's like we need mass protest and mass demonstrations that are just such a show of force that make it obvious to the rest of America that isn't at the protest.
Right.
That, in essence, the majority agrees with them. And we don't have to allow ourselves to continue to be pushed around by minority rule, especially when it's gone this far, because the impeachable offenses are just stacking up. We just don't have the Congress willing to do that job.
Yeah. And we don't have an election that's going to take place in order for us to get the numbers. Because he's going to be so far underwater by the time 26 rolls around. There's no way he's going to allow a free and fair election to take place. There's no way. There's no way. I can't see it. With the fuckery that he's engaged in already, can you imagine what it's going to be like 18 months from now? I don't think it's going to be America we can recognize.
Yeah, he's really down to on all these polls. He's really down to core MAGA now. Like, he's down below 40%. He's down below 40% on immigration, which was supposedly his number one topic. He's underwater on the economy, which was basically his number 2 or 1A,
right,
in terms of why people said they voted for him when they didn't want to acknowledge it was their racism. But those are like, if those two things he's his luster on.
Right.
We know most people, were negative on him on things like healthcare, where he's never had a plan, right? Education. Then you just get to all the other topics. So it gets to a point he's almost unrecoverable for him. So like you said, I mean, the carnage of the midterms, if there's a fair vote, would be, potentially historic.
Right.
And how can he possibly let that happen?
Right. And there's no good way for anyone to say, if I get back into, if I win a seat, like we got these 33 Senate seats up for grabs in 2016. If I win a seat, you need to pledge that you're going to vote, to impeach and remove. That needs to be your campaign slogan. I will impeach and remove, because there's no other way to go with this dude. There's no adults in the room. There's no one to tell him no. There's no one to school him on the rule of law. He doesn't care about the rule of law. So he just wants to continue steamrolling everything and everyone to get what he wants and to enrich himself and his ridiculous kids. So I just think, if we can't impeach and remove, we can't go on as a country.
Look, the first goal is to gain power. Second goal is to retain power, right? So
Right.
now Trump is in retain power mode. He's still, I mean, you saw from that crazed tweet that he sent out, he's still in his demented psychopathic mind, which is in decline, talking about the 2020 election being stolen from him.
Right.
Right? Like he
Right.
wants investigations into the 2020 election to be a top priority of our FBI right now.
Yeah.
Currently. Even after having won in 2024, in his crazed mind, we really should be going back to investigate, because he, either because he stole 24, everything has to project everything and flip it around. But that's where his head is at, and that's where he thinks the country should be at. That's a major priority of this country, is to prove that he won that election. So if you have a person in power where that is their number one topic that rattles around in their head, what are the odds of them peacefully giving up power in the future? It's almost no chance.
Right.
So we have to act accordingly. The people aren't doing enough, and, trying to ride it out to this midterm election seems like a loser's game. I'll say it on every show. It seems like a loser's game. So we're going to have to do some stuff in the interim, right? The protests have died. Maybe now we're letting MAGA fight MAGA. But, I don't even see anything on the No Kings protests. I haven't seen anything. I mean, there's John Lewis, his birthday coming up on the 17th, which is supposedly a day of protest. But I'm not, is there stuff going on in the black community that day? Because I'm not hearing anything on the white side of the ledger.
No, and we never heard anything about the State of the People tour. It got zero media coverage, especially nationally. Angela Rye and Tiffany Cross out in front on that thing. And, I don't know if they're toxic to mainstream media now, because Angela is a contributor on CNN and Tiffany Cross was let go unceremoniously from MSNBC. But I don't know why they couldn't get coverage on that. I mean, you would think, well, no, you wouldn't think, because Trump is good for television ratings, right? People are turning on the TV to see, what did this idiot do today? What did he fuck with now, right? What disaster did he cause now, right? Because nobody's tuning in to see what good he's done, right? Nobody watches for good news. I mean, he's good for business. He's good for television. And, and with mainstream media hurting right now for viewers, they're trying to compete with all these streaming networks and platforms. They can't keep up, so they need a Trump. They need a lunatic like this at the helm,
so
they have something to talk about.
So they're chasing the Rosie O'Donnell story. They're chasing the 50% tariffs on Brazil because he doesn't like that Bolsonaro's going on trial. I'm trying to think of what other lunacy came. I mean, obviously the Epstein files, they're loving that controversy because it gives them something to talk about. Yeah, everyone's just talking about Trump is still sucking all the oxygen out of the room, and there's no one else whose words and thoughts are getting anyone's attention. It's not going to be able to be done through mainstream media, right? It's going to have to be done through all these online forums. But look, No King's got a lot of people out there. Just didn't get any Latino and Black people out there. And we're still waiting for the consortium, the coming
Right.
together of different groups to kind of get out there together. Um, Even if it's not for the exact same reason. I think the ICE Gestapo can actually unite us all.
Yeah. But I mean, let's hope so. I mean, everybody should have the reaction that the Haitian community had, right? The Haitian community did not stand still for that nonsense for 1 minute, right? And I get it because I know they don't want to go back to where they came from with the disarray that that country is in. Right? They actually have a credible asylum case, right? And there are many other countries that are under the same kind of war-torn chaos that Haiti is going through. And but see again, arrogant Americans, especially MAGA types who don't travel outside of their own zip code, don't have any clue about that stuff, right? These are not world travelers. I mean, they just don't. But we should all have that same kind of reaction, that same kind of fight back, right? Because the ICE doesn't have the numbers over America. There's 330 something million of us, right? And if we all got together, they can't be just taking people, sending them off to third
Yeah,
world,
I mean,
third
how
country.
is the Latino? I mean, the Latino community is going to get decimated here as ICE staffs up, right? Because if they're given higher quotas and they're trying to even do more than 3,000 people a day, then that's just that just starts stacking up, right? That's like that's we're in the tens of thousands a month. And then into the hundreds of thousands, and then we're working our way towards a million, right? Of people being caged in facilities, and they can only fly out so many a day. So we're just going to have a ton of these facilities. I mean, Maxwell Frost and some others went down to Alligator Alley and just said it's abhorrent conditions, but we knew it would be because, of course, they couldn't have put plumbing in and any kind of like proper living conditions in 2 weeks, right? They couldn't have built it in 2 weeks. So that's going to be those atrocities are going to get amped up. And, I still feel like, that's what we have to rally around right now this summer. That's the
Yeah,
here and now. And we got to nip this Gestapo in the bud before it gets built up and staffed because it's going to get harder. The
right,
more people they have in the streets and the more guns they have, the harder it's going to be to have a counter force against it and the easier it's going to be for Trump to not allow future elections. I mean, we can see the
right,
slippery slope right in front of us.
right. And we're getting more and more oil on that slippery slope every day because again, Project 2025 working under the cover of night to rid us of our rights as human beings and as Americans. They just continue plodding along. Again, we need that shutdown in Washington D.C. It's got to happen. That's the only thing he's going to respond to is a massive show of force in the nation's capital that gums up the works of the American government and his regime. It's the
Yeah, he
only
needs to be
thing.
embarrassed. He needs to be chanted down. He needs to be booed. He needs a serenade of like a million people there booing him, not just a soccer crowd at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, right? Who boos him on the Jumbotron. Talking about just, millions of people out there on the street, like directly confronting Donald Trump. Don't get lost in
Right.
the weeds on any of the underlings, right? They're interchangeable parts, right? That's why I don't care if Pam Bondi leaves the head of DOJ. It's just going to be another Pam Bondi right behind her. Like the person doesn't matter in any of these chairs.
No.
Christy
No.
Noem could get fired tomorrow. It doesn't matter. You're going to get the same type of person. Maybe even one who's a little bit more effective and even smarter, and maybe can get more nefarious and negative shit done. So you kind of worry about the next person as much as you worry about the person in the seat. All the ire has to be directed at Trump. He has to continually be chopped down to life size. The Epstein files maybe is chopping him down from his godlike perch to just looking like another chump. And that's what the left and the opposition has to do. We have to just keep chopping and chipping away at him personally. Wear him down. Instead of him wearing the American people down, we have to turn it and wear him down.
Right.
We're not doing it yet.
And it's not going to be hard, right? He's feeble, he's older, but he's not in good health, right? Like we could really turn the heat up on him and it would make his life very difficult. The medical staff there at the White House would have their work cut out for them, trying to help, him stay stable and keep from becoming unhinged.
Yeah, let him stay up all night. We love when he stays up all night,
Yeah,
right?
he's
Because
throwing out crazy shit all over.
reading, because he can't sleep because he's got all this shit on his mind. So let him worry about it and label us all as socialist, communist, Marxist, all this horse shit labels that they try to layer on people that just want to restore America back to what it was, like, or hopefully a little bit better than what it was before him, right? But yeah, let him feel, he's so narcissistic. Let him feel the negativity. Let him feel the hate. Let him have to fight against it. Let him try to convince all the MAGAs that the hate against him is they're all idiots, and he has to just one by one kind of take us all on.
Right, right.
Let's just wear him down. He's an old man. Let's wear him down.
And he can't deal without having the adoration that he requires, right? And for him to know the numbers are so far against him would just, again, keep him up all night, throwing out crazy shit. We'd get more impeachable offenses. We would get that conflict that we are all looking for because it'll spell the end of his regime and his presidency. So, I don't understand why you and I are the only ones coming up with this. This needs to be mainstream thinking. And I see we're getting pushback on Blue Sky whenever we bring it up. What's the alternative? 2026? That ain't gonna cut it.
Yeah, just navigating or trying to have little skirmishes on the streets with ICE agents as they come to cart people away. Yeah, I love to see that. It's fantastic. But we're just going to have thousands of those skirmishes, and they're unwinnable skirmishes because ICE is better armed. Right? And right now they fucking have the law on their side. Right? They're the authorities. So they can, in essence, bully America.
Right. And that's what they're doing.
And that's what they're doing because it's a lot of small fights. And I applaud the courage of the people that are fighting back, but you're not gonna win these little battles. Right. At best, you fight them to a draw, and maybe they go away every so often. But they're coming back to get their quotas. So really, the only countervailing measure that I think has a chance of being impactful is to show the overwhelming and huge numbers, and then it'll change the dynamic of the country. It'll change the thinking because then the stories will be written as like, is this the end for Trump? And then the pressure on the MAGA politicians will increase, or maybe some of them will see a chance to get out from under Trump and say that like this is just something that has to be done. There's a chance that happens, and of course, like we said, there's a chance he makes some huge mistakes along the way, and basically calls in overwhelming violence. For who knows? He may want a nuclear bomb dropped on DC if there's a protest there. Right? And then, someone will have to say no fucking way, right? And then it may just get to a level of like this guy, 25th Amendment, this guy can't be president anymore. Like we're not bombing our own cities. But he could do something that crazy. It's not in the realm of possibility. He ain't going down quietly. Like it's going to be a very, very ugly.
It's gonna be ugly.
We just need to make it. We just need to accelerate and get it to happen faster.
Yeah. Absolutely, my friend. All right, buddy. Great chat. Always a pleasure.
All right, Mark. Good stuff. Always good to speak to you. And we'll catch up again tomorrow.
Sounds good. Right. See you then, buddy. Peace.
Bye-bye.